Welcome to episode 4 of the Truth in the Arena podcast, where we're talking to experienced coaches. And instead of talking about their season plans and their programs and sets and reps, instead we're looking at the values, principles, and core things that make them who they are as coaches, and then transferring the conversation from those basic principles to how those principles inform their views on human, social, and political issues. So today we have Scott Charland in to visit with us. He has been in the strength and conditioning field for over 20 years, working at universities such as St. Louis, Temple, and Butler. He's a former competitive powerlifter and is currently the head of performance at Parkview Sports Medicine, where he oversees over 20 strength and conditioning coaches from all different sectors, high school, college, and private. So ton of skin in the game. We are very happy to have Scott here with us today. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you doing this. This is a podcast that it's nice. It kind of gets all of us out of our comfort zones a little bit. And that's really where we need to be at this moment right now, is out of our comfort zones.
Absolutely. No, it's very easy to get into that routine of just having where you're the most comfortable, and then pushing outside of that is where you can grow and where you can learn. And through the opening episodes, where we've begun is talking about how having longevity as a coach or longevity in the field usually isn't a matter of just caring about developing athletic qualities. It's not usually a matter of just having a steady paycheck. Usually there's an intrinsic motivation that drives coaches to be able to do this over time. So can you talk about a little bit about those motivating principles, those motivating values that most matter to you and keep you in the field for as long as you've been in it?
Yeah, and I think that evolves over time. When I got into the profession, 25, 6, I think I got into this because I love lifting weights. And then that was really it. Like, hey, let's just get after it and lift weights. But as you are in the profession longer and you get into more leadership positions, you see that, yes, we can make an impact in the lives of student athletes, and then eventually down the road in the lives of strength and conditioning coaches as well. So, just for me right away, when I got into strength and conditioning, again, we're lifting weights that I see, but we all see that NCAA ad, hey, 400,000 student athletes, and they're all going pro in something other than sports. And so it's like, for me, it was like, okay, what can I teach the student athletes in the weight room that they can then take with themselves into their career? And that's, hey, showing up on time, and ownership, and hey, making your shoes are tied and your shirt's tucked in, or all that stuff. Just those little things that when you go for a job interview, no foul language. Hey, if you go for a job interview and I was cussing you out in the weight room all the time, and there's foul language on the music all the time, and then they ask you a question and you drop an F-bomb, that's on me. I didn't prepare you for that situation. So again, doing the things, hey, hard work does lead to success. Those things initially was like, yes, I can make an impact in these student athletes' lives. And so for the first, maybe third of my career, it was, hey, I want to make these student athletes great employees, reliable, dependable humans for when they go into the job market, because that's why they go to college. They go to college to get a job. And then after that, there was a little bit of a change. And I'll never forget, I was at my interview process at St. Louis University. And I was interviewing for the director of Olympic sports. So there was a head strength coach for men's and women's basketball. And then I was interviewing for the director of Olympic sports. And he, went out of his way to make sure that I knew that men's and women's basketball were the two most important sports on campus. Those were the student athletes who were when those student athletes needed to get in the weight room, I got my teams out and they got their teams in. And one of the questions he asked me was, well, how do you tier your teams? How do I tier my teams? What are you talking about? Yeah, which ones are the most important? And then which ones, are you going to just kind of let go by? What are you talking about, man? Like, every one of these teams is important. There is no more or less important student athlete on this campus. Every one of these athletes is the most valuable resource to their parents, right? So my wife was a Division I volleyball coach, all right? I will tell you, we lived and died on Birmingham Southern College volleyball games. I didn't care what Alabama football didn't matter to me at all. I don't care what North Carolina basketball didn't matter to me at all. Birmingham Southern volleyball was the most important part of my life. And so I understand that, hey, it might be the tennis program at St. Louis University or the field hockey program at St. Louis University, but to those coaches, to those student athletes, that is the most important aspect of their lives, and we owe it to them as coaches to treat them that way. Whether you're the six singles women's tennis player or the starting point guard, we are all equal here. No one is getting a service above and beyond anyone else. And so that got me thinking, like, man, and we see that with football too. You know, I was in some football weight rooms where I was like, hey, football. Hey, we're coming in there. When I started in the profession, football and Olympic sports at UAB worked out in the same weight room. We didn't think twice about it. We had equality, we had equity, and now it's like, no, football's got to be over here, and baseball's got to be over there, and volleyball's got to be back. Why? Why does that have to be? So it got me thinking, like, for me, it's important that every one of these student athletes gets treated with equity and respect. There's no class divide of basketball and blah, blah, blah. If someone else wants to play that game, they're more than welcome to play it. I'm not playing it in the weight room. So equal treatment of the student athletes was super important to me. And you know, this team's not just going to get an intern to design their program. I'm designing the programs for everybody. I'm overseeing the programs for everybody because I care that much about the walk-on field hockey player as I do about the Friday night starter on the baseball team. As my role now has evolved where I don't do as much coaching anymore, I do more hiring. And as you mentioned in the introduction, I have 23 strength and conditioning coaches. My role now, what gets me out of bed now is, you know, creating well-paying jobs with a work-life balance for strength and conditioning coaches. And I've been able to do that and literally not change the lives of student athletes anymore, but change the lives of strength coaches and put them into great jobs that have clearly defined guardrails so they're not getting taken advantage of. And being able to see my coaches take a vacation and not work 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. and buy a new car and have a work-life balance and do those things. Again, as I've evolved and taken on more of a leadership role in the profession, hiring and making an impact in coaches' lives is what gets me going.
No, that's fantastic. And everything that you've just discussed leads us very seamlessly into our second question. So you talk about your own coaching values in terms of teaching detail orientation, teaching the value of hard work, viewing every single athlete as valuable as the athlete on their right, the athlete on their left, regardless of what sport they're in, and then preparing both athletes and coaches for what comes next. They're, you know, making sure that people have a job and a track that they're moving towards. So how do those values then immediately dovetail into the perspectives and who you support in the political realm?
Yeah, and so you know, I guess I didn't need a politician or anyone else to tell me, but when I was in kindergarten, I learned the golden rule. Hey, treat people how you want to be treated. Like, how is that a novel concept? But it is these days. And so for me, I always treated people how I wanted to be treated. I wanted to be treated fairly. I wanted to be treated equally. I wanted to, you know, have the same rights and respect that anybody else did. So for me, that leads me to look for politicians that feel the same way. And what I'm not, sometimes it's easier to say what you're not going to look for. What I'm not going to look for is a bully. What I'm not going to look for is politicians that punch down on the marginalized. I'm not going to look for politicians that are going to bully immigrants, that are going to bully LGBTQ populations, that are going to bully the working poor, that are going to bully Native Americans. All right. That doesn't go with me. All right. The bully aspect doesn't go with me. You wanna fight with somebody and take somebody on, take me on. All right. Take on a white, upper middle class, educated, heterosexual guy. All right. So when I see politicians that are punching down and acting like bullies, big time turnoff. A big time turn. There's just no reason for that. There's just no reason for that. Again, it butts right against that treating everybody equally and treating everybody with respect. Really on the political spectrum, then one thing that resonated with me is in the 2020 would have been the Bernie Sanders campaign. Hey, are you willing to fight for somebody you do not know? And man, that hit me. That I don't know any immigrants to this country or dreamers or those kind of things, but yeah, I'm going to fight for those people because they deserve the same respect that I've been afforded my whole life. And I absolutely will do that and use the position of my influence again as a upper middle class college educated heterosexual white man. I'm happy to use that influence and that power to eagerly, gladly fight for somebody who I do not know. And then lastly is again, developing these jobs. My staff at Parkview Sports Medicine, we started with 4 staff members. We're now at 23. I created the job codes, and it was a totally new business when I started. So I created the job codes. I created the job descriptions so that when I sent that to Parkview's HR, they kind of fill in what salary range that is going to be. And I beefed it up and talked it up. So those salaries are really good. I could have short sold us and just been like, hey, no, I can hire a strength coach for $40,000. But I didn't do that. All right. I made sure to put in the job description all the things that we do, all the hours that we work, so that these positions can get paid. And then when it's time for human resources to give me the range, I say, now we're going right to the top of that range. All right. So in that regard, FDR, giving somebody a meaningful, purposeful, well-paying, self-actualizing job, man, that's power. Because when you have that kind of work and that kind of employment, and you're not constantly stressing about money, then you can be creative. You can be yourself. You can learn and grow and develop and pass that on to people. But if you're constantly, oh, how am I going to make ends meet? How's this going to happen? When am I going to get fired? That's not any way to live. That's just not a way to live. And so, Bernie and FDR, on the also side of that, like if I listen to anything Jesse Ventura says, I have a hard time disagreeing with anything he says. And I think man alive, Bernie obviously got kneecapped, but I think Jesse could have won the presidency in 16 or 20 had he, and Bernie could have too, had they had the blessing of the Democratic Party. Because Jesse, right away, Trump can't play his macho tough guy bully game with the guy that's actually the personification of Navy SEAL macho tough guy.
Right.
The Democratic Party just doesn't cede all of those things to the right. So, man, listen, I hate we'll talk about it on the media one, but yeah, Jesse's great.
Yeah, no. So you talk very clearly about connecting the leadership side to the policy side. And when we think of coaches, sometimes coaches can really think of themselves being sort of blindered and that they can pick a leader and they're insulated from the actual outcomes of that leader or that party's decision making and their agenda. And in the second episode of the podcast, Kendall Green and I talked a little bit about coaches being willing to vote against their athletes' interests and not really looking out for their athletes in terms of their voting preferences. But one of the things we really saw in this election was a lot of not just citizens, but coaches voting against their own interests, where they voted for a Republican ticket that was going to be hostile to some of the things that mattered to them. So can you talk about some of the real tangible, hands-on ways that voting for the Republican Party has had an impact on the finances and careers of strength coaches who are looking to get ahead in this field?
Absolutely. And this one just absolutely punched me in the face about 3 weeks ago. The worst day of my 25-year career in the profession happened about 3 weeks ago. So Indiana, where I work, Republican supermajority state government, and their goal is to defund public education at every step that they can and create school vouchers so that people that already go to private school can pay for private school. And so in my role as manager of human performance at Parkview Sports Medicine, we provide strength and conditioning coaches to 12 area high schools. And that's kind of a partnership where the school pays for half the salary, Parkview Sports Medicine pays for half the salary, and then we also cover the benefits. So they're actually a Parkview Sports Medicine employee. But again, the schools do have to pay some of that. And one of these school districts had 4 strength and conditioning coaches with us, big school district. So even though they're only paying half, they were still spending a good, well into 6 figures to put these strength and conditioning coaches into the classroom. Well, because of the state cuts to public education, I had to terminate 4 strength coaches last week or 3 weeks ago. The school district reached out and said, we just can't do it anymore. It's like textbooks are you guys. And we have to look at it. We're a luxury. I mean, it's at the end of the day, we are, So the school district tried to find different ways. We tried to find different ways. And at the end, it was just like, man, these folks are going to be able to stay through the end of the summer. And then that's it. So I got 4 strength coaches that were doing a fantastic job, great performance reviews. Student athletes loved them. Coaches loved them. We're making an impact on their campuses. And they're done July 31st because the public school money is being just absolutely dried up. And I approached this with our guys because there's guys in that room I know voted red. And I just laid out the information. I said, fellas, here's what's going on with public education in Indiana. And had the articles from the newspapers, and this is that. State of Indiana spends $460 million a year, not once, every year, $460 million a year taken from public schools to go to school vouchers. All right. When this started, private school enrollment in Indiana increased less than 10%. So what does that tell you? These vouchers didn't get, school choice and school choice. These vouchers didn't like all of a sudden, we can all go to a great school now. Less than 10%. These vouchers went to rich parents that already put their kids in private school. It's a private school subsidy, but that's being stolen. You want to go to private school, like knock yourself out. I don't want to stop you. Great. That's a decision you and your family make. Wonderful. But that should not be taken from public schools. All right. We all pay for roads. It'd be like saying, you're not going to get my taxes for the roads so that I can, fancy up my own driveway. No, we're all in this together. All right. This community, this America, United States. And so $460 million a year, guys, are getting ripped out of public education every year. And then next year, and then next year, and then next year. All right. On top of all this, state of Indiana has a $2 billion budget surplus because the hell if they're going to spend the money on anything, making roads better, helping schools get better, after school program. And instead of helping you, they're just going to hold on to it. And so I said, guys, at any point, state of Indiana could release some of those $2 billion worth of funds that they have and save your positions. But they would rather hurt you and hurt public education than to release that money. So that was a big one. I mean, obviously that hit me right where I live because those guys, one guy's having a baby in the fall. Other guy just bought a house. Another guy moved up from Texas away from his family to take that job. What do I tell these guys? I said, guys, this decision was made in November. We got the email second week of March, but this was done because of the election. And I had, my supervisor, those 4 guys sitting in that room. And I said, fellas, we could skirt around the issue and try not get political here and not hurt anybody's feelings. But if you want to know why this happened, as your manager, I have to tell you 100% why this happened. Vouchers and a surplus that's not getting used. And so now we have other, schools that we're like, gosh, I hope we don't get that email again. So that's a big one. Then this summer, and this is where I'm going to kind of go to my notes, but the Biden administration implemented an overtime rule this summer. All right. And basically how this rule works, this would have benefited 4.3 million salaried workers would have been eligible to earn 1.5 times overtime pay when working over 40 hours a week. The first rate went into effect July 1st. So if you made $44,000 a year, all right, as a company, you could either pay that person 1.5 times their salary for overtime, or hey, once they're at their 40 hours a week, that's it. They're done. All right. The more significant jump, however, was January 1st, 2025. The law was going to be if you don't make the threshold was going to go from 44 to 58,656. So if you didn't make $58,656, your employee or your employer could either pay you 1.5 times your salary in overtime or bump you up to that rate and then not worry about it anymore. That was kind of the threshold. Well, we're at the point, my strength coach, my just entry level strength coaches, boom, we hire you up. We're at $53,000 a year. Would have been a $5,000 raise for every one of my entry level strength coaches, let alone our athletic trainers, let alone the strength coaches at the colleges that don't make that. All right. And a Trump judge cut that rule out first chance he got, and that ain't going anywhere from here. So that directly costed, see what your salary is. If strength coaches listen to this, if it's not 58,656, it would have been, but it's not anymore. All right. And so, what about where does all the creatine in America come from? China. There's one factory in the United States in Nebraska that produces creatine. Wait till the gym bros pay 100 and whatever it is. Lord knows what it is now, 104, 156, 170, whatever the tariff is going to be on China. But when they're having to pay more for their creatine, how is that going to hit home? All right. So those are, some policies. And then in this whole time frame, because of the economic uncertainty, Parkview, my company, has gone into a hiring freeze. So I try and explain this to people, like, if you're a coach, you have your 401k, a university has its endowment. Well, big companies are invested in the stock market as well. And when the stock market takes, a 10 to 20% drop, that affects everybody. You can't plan for what you want to do. And then the uncertainty, well, it's this one day and it's that one day. And now next week it's this. And you just can't plan with the economic uncertainty. So the plan is just, hey, shut it down. We're not doing any more hiring. And that affects us. And again, let alone how it affects, everybody like myself that has a 401k. Man, I always say, you may not do politics, but politics is going to do you. It does. And you need to pay attention for what you're voting for and dig into the weeds a little bit more than, oh, that guy looks cool and oh, he wraps himself in the flag and those kind of things, because it does affect you 100 different ways.
Absolutely. And then, you talk about the leadership side of it and letting people know that, hey, these are the realities, these are the outcomes of your actions. And you mentioned being in an area where there's, a Republican supermajority in Indiana. And then from that leadership side, the next gap to how do you actually try to be active in pushing for a change. That gap's not one that we're great with on the coaching side. I think in part, particularly if we're advocating for the out of power group, from the coaching side, that type of protest tends not to be terribly popular. I think in part because coaches want to be doing things, not arguing about things. We want to be saying, hey, we have a solution, not just, planting the flag and being in opposition. And then also on the coaching side, we're used to hearing the armchair quarterbacks and the sideline coaches and everybody who has an opinion who's not really in the arena. But ultimately, to create change, if you're in that out of party group, you have to have that activist mindset. So what do you think are some productive ways that coaches can bridge that sort of mental gap and feel comfortable, like, hey, I am not necessarily part of the group in power right now, but I am advocating for my principles?
And I'm going to get to that just quickly to finish up on that last question, because something popped into my head. A lot of strength coaches, they see that Make America Healthy Again, and I want to vote for that. Yeah, I want to vote for that. Let's just take a look at some of the executive orders that have been signed that are going to make America healthy again. Rolling back patient protections in the American Care Act, one of which would allow insurers can again deny coverage for pre-existing conditions and impose lifetime limits on coverage. Defunding the America ACA outreach programs that help Americans enroll in affordable health plans. How is that making America healthy? Rescinded the Biden, like day one, rescinded the Biden order designed to lower prescription drug costs for Medicare and Medicaid recipients. So now people got to go back to cutting up their pills to make them last. Rescinded the policy that allowed Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices. How in any way, shape, or form does that make America healthy again? Reduce funds that support the National Institutes of Health, National Cancer Institute. Those funds went to St. Jude. We all see those St. Jude commercials. You just defunded St. Jude, tough guy. All right, that's what you voted for? Keep going. Rollbacks to environmental protections, weakening regulations on air and water quality, allowing increased industrial pollutions, reversing emission standards. How is this making America healthy again? Executive orders to stop the grants that were going to remove lead pipes from our neighborhoods. Well, again, you're a bully. You don't have lead pipes in Mar-a-Lago, but they sure as hell do a lot of other places, but you don't care. You don't care about making America healthy again. Not eliminated limits on the forever chemicals in our drinking water. You had Coach Evanesh on a couple. Well, why is there so much, pollution, and why are there so many chemicals on the foods that we eat? Deregulation.
Right.
You're letting business, you're letting business just do whatever they want. We got to take down government regulations. Those government regulations, you really look at them, they're there to help you stay safe. Government regulations are what make kids not work in the coal mines anymore. Government regulations are what unions fought for, so their safety standards were better. Cut funding for U.S. Agriculture Department program that helps schools and food banks buy products from local farmers. Again, Coach Evanes talked about the processed foods and the processed foods and the processed foods. Yeah, hey man, we're right there. Why do you think we have these processed foods? Deregulation. You're voting for the things that you're railing against. So yeah, just wanted to go on that. And so your next question, how do we protest this when it's not terribly popular? Terribly popular. Now, what has any Republican, quite frankly, politician done that's terribly popular? When left to ballot referendums, $15 minimum wage, legalize marijuana, women's right to choose. Democratic, liberal, progressive policies always pass in flying color, and then people vote Republican. In Florida's elections, this past time, they'll all vote for all these environmental protections. They'll vote for $15 minimum wage. This most recently in Kansas or Missouri, $15 minimum wage and increased Medicaid. Never going to happen because then you vote for Josh Hawley. So be the goddamn resistance. And I think at some points we want to play nice and we don't want to rock the boat and this and that. Hey, again, that time's over. Like I could have gotten that meeting with those 4 guys and my boss and kind of danced around why this happened and said, well, guys, this is just bad luck. And sometimes bad things happen to good people. No, hey, I'm going to tell you straight like it is. Here's why this happened. So be the protest. Take it out there. Be active. These policies are not popular. Everybody, Trump won in a landslide. Trump won in a mandate. They're the party in power. The hell he did. Joe Biden won by 4.5%. Donald Trump won by about 1.5. Did anybody say after the 2020 election Joe Biden had a mandate? That just whatever he wants to do, let's give it a rubber stamp it? No. But he won by 3 times, the percentage points that Trump won by. Well, Trump had 77 million voters. Okay, well, Kamala had 75. 36 million people didn't vote. 36 million adults of voting age didn't vote. So 75 and 36, that's 105, 111. 111 million people in this country did not vote for Trump. That ain't the majority. All right. We obviously got to get those people out and vote and even that out. But that's not a majority. Those policies aren't popular. You get bombarded by the media to tell you they are, but they're not. Get out there, fight, speak up, say something. Don't be quiet. Get off the sidelines. Go to a protest, go to a rally. If we're not out in the streets letting people know that we don't agree with this, then they're just going to assume that we do. That's okay. Ain't nobody saying anything. Do you think all those protests helped end the war in Vietnam quicker? Certainly. Hey, this ain't going to fly. Like, we just got to do something about this. All right. So again, kind of like I said in the beginning, there are other things I'd rather do on a Saturday than go to a Tesla dealership and walk out in front of it and protest. But hey, that's what it calls for right now. And I think that we give too much credit to the other side to how popular they are and what a mandate this was and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't. It wasn't like that at all. And we need to stop thinking like that and fight for what we believe is right.
Absolutely. And within what we were just discussing there, sort of got a little bit to the activism side. And in the last election, you helped create a Strength Coaches for Kamala Harris messaging group and organize that side of it. And then discussed the number of voters who just flat out didn't vote in the last election. We've discussed people who have voted completely against their interests. Everybody who's voting to make America healthy again while voting for all of the rollbacks to the things that may make it healthy again. Like, did you learn anything from that experience of organizing that you think can help with the next steps in terms of, all right, how do we get all of those Make America Healthy Again coaches onto voting for the Democratic side where, hey, maybe we can actually create regulations on processed food and better air and better healthcare outcomes, and working to actually work with the education department to get good food for kids, working to get better PE and all of those things. So like just a few of the takeaways that you had from that experience.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to go back to the previous question because I processed a few more things. But no, make America healthy again. Think of all the national emergencies that Trump has declared. There's a national emergency at the border. There's a national energy emergency. If he wanted to, this afternoon, he could declare a national health emergency. Hey, obesity is way out of hand. Childhood obesity is way out of hand. Obesity for anybody is way out of hand. Cancer, all those things that Coach Evan has talked about. This afternoon, he could say, hey, executive order, we're taking care of this. We are going to make America healthy again. And kids in school, are going to have to stand by their desk. And like we had to pledge allegiance to the flag. You know what? You got to march in place for 30 minutes or do jumping jacks or sit down in your chair and stand back up 100 times before school starts every day. Fund after school programs, before school programs. Put, where PE has been taken out of classrooms. Hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to hire 100,000 PE teachers and we're going to put the damn National Guard instead of at the border. They're going to go to every school and put kids through PT every day. And instead of defunding universities and schools that don't eliminate DEI, hey, if you don't get on board with us, this Make America Healthy Again, and putting the troops at your school to make sure the kids are active, then we're going to take away your federal funding. He could do it. He's done it for everything else. But again, it's just a slogan. Make America great again. When was it so great? To ask a African American person when this was so great. Ask a laborer. Ask somebody in Appalachia when was this so great. Ask what was this great in the 1800s when I couldn't vote. And so you got talking a little bit on that Evan Esch podcast about, well, what policies could you do? What policies could you do? Hey, declare a national emergency and start going to work tomorrow. Could be done, but you don't really want to do it. You just kind of want to say you're going to do it. Back to the Strength Coaches for Harris. Yeah, so I spend a lot of time driving, and once the excitement of Joe Biden finally getting removed and somebody else coming in, all these groups, Teachers for Harris and Firefighters for Harris. And well, it was this White Guys for Harris. And it was kind of this, a group of a voting bloc that kind of traditionally you see as a Republican voting bloc, white guys like me, guys like you, that you just look at and say, that's a Republican voter. I was on some of those calls and listening in and the community, and boy, there's all these people on this call. I'm not alone in this. I may be a white guy. You may tell me that all white guys vote for, the other guy, but this ain't true. And it just kind of clicked in my head. I was like, dang, Strength Coaches for Harris. Why not? In the past 8 years on social media, I follow and unfollow people that had similar political positions to me. So I had a pretty good solid chunk of people to reach out to. I was only, I'm only who I am. I don't have much of a, that much weight in the profession, but I knew my buddy Tony Holler, who I had dinner with, and we didn't talk about strength and conditioning at all. We talked about Bernie Sanders. And so I called him up. I said, hey, Tony, what about this idea? Strength Coaches for Harris. I reach out to individual strength coaches that I know are politically aligned with us. And then we just get on a call every month have some speakers, so that people know that, so that strength coaches know they're not alone, that there are other ones like them. By doing that, we give them permission to post some things on Instagram or Twitter that they maybe wouldn't have. Give them permission to talk about things with their student athletes that maybe they wouldn't have. And so we did that, and we ended up with about 250 coaches in that group. We would have calls. We did 3 or 4 last Sunday of every month, just getting people together. Hey, what are you experiencing? Why? What are you looking forward to voting to? Why are you voting? Similar conversations to this with our guest speakers. And for me, as much as I would like to forget the last election, that was one bright spot where we could organize, we could come together as a profession. I met a bunch of new friends. I met a bunch of new contacts. I met people that, share similar views with. And as many people as joined us forward facing, be amazed at how many DMs I got behind the scenes. Hey, man, I can't join this group, but man, go give them hell. From big names that everybody would recognize, but they just weren't there yet. And that's okay. That's okay. So some of those, and then younger strength coaches, boy, if I follow this, I don't know what my boss is going to say. Hey, if your boss has a problem with it, probably not a guy you want to work for. Either way, likewise, if my employees said, oh, I voted for Trump, and I was like, hey, come see me in my office, you're gone, man. That works both ways. It's the last time I checked, freedom of speech. So I think hopefully it gave people permission. At least what gave me permission, it might have been a Simply Faster article but Tony Holler, in one of his articles way long ago, talked about being a supporter of Bernie Sanders and all this. And I said, you know what? That inspires me. That gave me permission to speak out. And if by doing that, Strength Coaches for Harris, I gave permission to other people to speak out, made them feel not alone in this political struggle, then man, it was worth it. I'm not sure exactly where it goes from here. Strength Coaches for Democracies. I just don't know. I think what you're doing is super valuable. So many people say, oh, you should start a podcast. You start a podcast. It just doesn't, it's just not exactly my thing. But I think what you're doing is a great extension of that. And so I thank you for that. So yeah, it was fun. We had we didn't have some, all of our speakers were nationally recognized, nationally known. And you're not alone out there as a strength coach that cares about people and has progressive ideas.
And you, in that last answer, talk about a couple things that lead directly into our next question, where you're talking a little bit about slogans and how, a lot of the Make America Great Again, Make America Healthy Again is an empty-ish slogan without action behind it. And you talk about permission structures and how important it is to have a permission structure to follow up on what you believe in. And then within the current media environment, those things in the propaganda realm get twisted, where a slogan can become a permission structure for something that is divisive and something that engenders a lot of bad feelings and hate. And I saw that a lot during the election, and it comes from both sides, where the manufacturing of outrage, and whether it's the end wokeness and libs of TikTok on the right who are just trying to rile people up. And that is the only commodity, is making people angry. But people that I know sharing that stuff. And then it goes on to the opposite side as well, where there are also anonymous accounts, whether it's the Brooklyn Dad or the angry staffer from each agency. And the same thing, manufacturing outrage that doesn't necessarily have accountability behind it, doesn't automatically have fact checking behind it. So in this current information environment, and as we're talking about being healthy individuals and having a healthy outlook on life, what are some of the keys that you can pass along to people watching this podcast in terms of how do you have a healthy media diet? How do you vet information that is political or involving an issue in the same way that you would vet seeing an exercise video? Because all of us as coaches can do that and be like, whoa, that's bonkers. Don't do that. But at the same time, maybe seeing a video that's breaking, and oh, hey, maybe that's okay, and not vetting it the same way.
Yeah, and this is such a great question. All the questions really got me thinking, and why I love this podcast, because I listen to it. I'm like, oh, how would I answer that question? How would I answer this question? you know, you just nailed it right on the head. Use the same filter that you use for your strength and conditioning consumption. Nathan, I want to tell you something. Did you know that back squatting on a Bosu ball increases your vertical jump 35% greater than just back squatting on the floor? It's the truth.
Seems legit. I'm trying it.
Yeah, right. And so,
Can I really load the bar up?
right, we would never, as a profession, let that claim pass with, hey, where's the study on that? Where's the research? Where's the this? Where's the that? Show me, who's this guy that's saying this? Hey, follow the link below to buy a Bosu ball. Follow the money. So use the same filter you do in strength and conditioning. If you see something politically, or hey, so and so did this, or so and so did that, or they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, I'm just gonna, retweet. Bosu ball increases 35% vertical retweet. Like, you would check it out. You would dive into it. You're just going to take somebody's word for it. Ask why. For me, the big thing was, man, yeah, there's a lot of people coming across the border. Why are there so many immigrants coming to this country? That's America, is great. Why? And these people are walking thousands of miles with their kids on their back. Why are they leaving their country? Google U.S. interventionism in Central America. See what you get. The immigrant issues that we're having in the United States, the same thing they're having in Europe. Why are all these Middle Eastern folks immigrating to other parts of Europe? Well, when you spent the last 30 years bombing their countries, what do you expect them to do? You do Nathan, if B2s were going over your house in Los Angeles every day for 30 years, be like, kids, man, pack it up, man. We're walking to Texas or Nebraska, wherever it is. You do it 100%, but you got to ask why. You got to dig deeper, just like we do in strength and conditioning. Dig deeper. Ask why. Why is this? Why? Hey, yeah, there's too much processed foods. Dig. Oh, corporate farming, deregulation, blah, blah, blah. Why is this like this? Ask those questions. As I said before, it's always good to follow the money. Who's getting paid to have this kind of point of view? And then again, just doesn't pass the sniff test. Man, that Bosu ball, man, that doesn't pass the sniff test. That just doesn't sound right. The cats and the dogs, that doesn't sound right. 1,000 other things that they say, that doesn't sound right. Dig into it a little bit more. Spend some time. And then you can make your decision from there. But yeah, use the same filter you use for strength and conditioning. Just use it for politics.
And in terms of like that filter for politics, I spent a weekend at the Fighting Oligarchy event up in Los Angeles. And one of the most notable points about it was how in love with American values the speakers actually were. They would potentially, in a propaganda environment, be the types of people who might be painted as being, crazy liberals who dislike America. But the speakers, to a person, deeply, deeply committed to ideals of democracy, deeply, deeply committed to the Bill of Rights, deeply committed to the separation of powers. And then in the initial episode, and you've mentioned your conversations with Tony, he was very, very passionate about his idea that progressivism is patriotic. Like it's a belief that, God damn it, we're Americans and this is what we believe is great for our country. And then at the same time, you can mention that coming into your office, you may have coaches that definitely voted for Donald Trump and the Republican ticket, but at the same time, put your arms around that, like, hey, we're still all part of the coaching community. What do you see as maybe a pathway forward for patriotism where people who have that progressive idea and people who have that coaching idea, is there like a path forward where people who have these kinds of very, very similar values? Because if you talk about principles and values with the coaches who voted for the Republican ticket, you're probably not very far off in terms of principles and values, just who clicked this box and who clicked this box. So that vision of America, what do you see?
Yes. And so again, this was a dandy because I thought long and hard about it, and it kind of hit me working out this morning. A lot of times we get patriotism confused with blind faith. All right. Hey, I'm a patriot. I love my country. And because I do, I can criticize my country when it doesn't meet the standard that it was set out to meet. Nathan, what's your favorite sports team?
The U.S. women's national team.
The U.S. women's national team. All right. Do you ever disagree with any decision they've ever made? Or are you just like, yep, that's the right decision? Yep, I agree. 100% on board, rubber stamp.
My daughter and I will sit there watching the games and we will critique the lineup, who didn't get put in at what time, why they didn't put certain players in. And just like you say, it's because we love them.
Care. Yeah.
Because we care and we're invested and we know what we're talking about.
Same with, I'm invested in this country. I care about this country. But you would never, think of your favorite sports team. We can all relate this to sports. The Bears, the Cowboys, the Knicks, whatever it is. Whatever that you've never criticized them. And the second you criticize them, you're not a fan anymore. Oh, we should have drafted this guy. Oh, we should have never traded that. Oh, we shouldn't have hired that head coach. Bitching about our pro sports teams is like, that's why we follow sports, to complain. It's not blind faith. All right. That's love. That's care. That's investment. No different with my country. Because I love this country, I can call out and say the genocide of Native Americans was abhorrent. The Trail of Tears, an embarrassment. All right. I can criticize slavery. I can criticize Jim Crow laws. I can criticize the Tulsa race riots, Emmett Till. We're better than that. Damn it, this country was founded on these beliefs and we're better than that. And when we don't hold up to those standards, I'm going to let you know. Do you love your kids, Nathan?
Very much so.
Your kids are perfect. You've never once critiqued your kids or told them they could do something better?
One of them's pretty sure she is, but every now and then that we have to let her know the other why.
Right. So you don't have blind love, blind adoration for your child. You care about them too much. If they hey, you were just driving too fast. Hey, my daughter gets home too late once in a while, and we got to let her know because we love her. We can critique her. That's parenting. That's patriotism because we love something, your spouse. You have arguments with your spouse because, hey, you're better than that. You should tell me as well. If I let you down and didn't hold up to what you thought this marriage was going to be, you got to tell me and say, hey, step it up, do better. We can do the same thing for our country. Patriotism is not blind faith and just a rubber stamp. Whatever the good USA says, that's what we got to do. No, that's not patriotism. All right, that's ignorance. All right, and let's just go. Would you consider the Constitution a patriotic document?
Patriotic? Well,
would most people? I mean, would the general? Hey, if we want to think of things that are patriotic, would the Constitution?
I would say so.
Yeah. Let me just read the first part. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Domestic tranquility, January 6th. Provide for the common defense. Promote the general welfare. Promote the general welfare. General welfare. Promote the general welfare. Damn, sounded like those guys were those radical socialists we keep hearing about. And secure the blessings of liberty into posterity. What is liberty? Liberty, the definition of liberty, the quality of being just, fair, righteousness, and equitable. Equity, DEI, equity. It's in the Constitution. Justice, what is justice? Just treatment of all members of society with regard to a specified public issue. Just treatment, fair treatment of all. This stuff is in the Constitution. And the clowns that drive around with the Constitution stenciled on the back window of their F-250 are never gonna say, oh, the Constitution, we should rip it up and shred it. Hey, man, promote the general welfare, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. You people that vote for that, you spit on the Constitution every day. What has Trump done for the Constitution? Wraps himself in the flag, tells about the Constitution. First 3 articles of the Constitution, separation of powers. All he's done since he's been elected is try to become a king. If the judicial branch says something that he doesn't like, we're just not going to believe it. Are any of these executive orders going through Congress? No, just boom, I'm a king, we're just going to get it done. He desecrates the Constitution every day he's alive, all right? How about Amendment 1, freedom of religion, speech, press, and assembly. Freedom of religion. That means also the freedom to not have religion. You don't have to shove your 10 commandments down my throat. Your religion prevents you from doing things. It doesn't prevent me from doing anything. Freedom of speech, as long as we totally agree with that speech. As long as you're not protesting a genocide, because then there's no freedom of speech. We're going to just come and grab you, get you out of here. Freedom of the press. How many press organizations is he suing or removing from White House press briefings? Freedom of assembly. There's literally laws been enacted to not let people organize and get in groups. They trample the Constitution every day. Amendment 5, due process. You're just grabbing people off the streets that you don't agree with. All those immigrants, we had this big, awesome, right-wing freaking, love fest video of dragging all these immigrants out of here. Where's their due process? This is America. This is America. You may not like them. Hey, if they're illegal aliens, undocumented, and they commit a crime, yeah, they should go. Last reporting was 75% of these people were not even convicted of a crime. There's no due process there. Right to a speedy trial, jury, witness, and counsel. Did all those people get a fair counsel? Or did you just ship them out in the middle of the night on a plane to El Salvador? Birthright citizenship. Bro, the first executive order seeks to overturn the 14th Amendment. So don't tell me I'm not patriotic. I care about this country. I'm going to criticize it when we don't live up to the standards that were set. Look yourself in the damn mirror, Trump and Republicans, if you want to talk about somebody that's not patriotic. You're walking all over the Constitution every day. So not having blind faith, not just sticking your head in the sand, not erasing history so we can pretend that the Native American genocide never happened, not erasing history so we can pretend that slavery didn't happen. And actually it was pretty good in a jobs program and these people learned skills that they could take later in life. Are you out of your freaking mind? All right. So that's being a patriot, understanding those things, calling people out when they're not following the Constitution. Don't criticize me for not being a patriot because I'm going to shine some light on the things that this government hasn't done that are great. All right. That makes me a patriot. It makes you a mark. All right. It makes me a patriot because I can criticize our country. It makes you a fool. It makes you a sucker. It makes you a sucker for a con man. All right. So yeah, the people on the left, the people that are not afraid to hold America to the standard that it's been set. Yeah, we are the patriots, not the other way around.
And that ties so incredibly into coaching because on the coaching side, it is a well-trodden cliche that you have to care enough about your athletes to hold them to a standard. Because if you let them do whatever, that's just because you don't care. It's easy. It's easy to not hold somebody to a standard. And the ones that you are making sure that they reach a certain standard, it is because you're invested and because you care and because you want better for them and you want them to reach their potential. And then really, when you're looking at the United States of America, what better standard can you hold people to than what you just did, which is I'm holding you to the standard of the Constitution. Like, these are the standards. Are you meeting them? No. Here's what has to happen. So very, very much appreciate you laying out that so simply for us and taking the time from your busy day to come onto the podcast here and talk. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this with our audience. And Scott, thank you very much again for being here today.
Thank you so much. It's a joy. I appreciate what you are doing. Again, it's not easy. It's uncomfortable. This is where we are. And these are the conversations we need to have. And again, man, keep doing it.
Right on. Thank